Hello and welcome to Moments in History. I'm Linda Shenton-Matchett, author, speaker, and history geek. While researching my books, I unearthed tons of intriguing information that doesn't end up in my stories. So I've created this channel so I can share these tidbits with you. I'm very excited about today's episode. I am interviewing Justin Gamache of the Wright Museum of World War II that's located here in Wolfeboro, New Hampshire. I hope you enjoy this behind-the-scenes look at this gem of a museum. Talk to me about traveling exhibits.
Yes.
We've had quite a few of those. That's been very exciting, and as you know, it's opened up whole other opportunities that we might have because, again, we don't have those particular items.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
How does that work?
So it's kind of fun to hunt for traveling exhibits to bring into the museum. You know, we're a World War II museum, so we're limited in that our collection can only be World War II specific. It only can be from either used or produced during the war years, so 39 to 45. But we try to bring in exhibits that are related to World War II, but that might not necessarily be directly about World War II. So the causes of World War II. We've had a World War I exhibit that we brought in from
Yes, that was amazing.
From the National World War I Museum. We've had exhibits about the Vietnam War, the Korean War, so kind of the legacy of what happened after World War II. So bringing in traveling exhibits kind of allows us to cover some things that we couldn't necessarily collect on our own, but that still are related to the whole story.
Okay.
So the process is we have to find them, first of all, and there's a lot of traveling exhibits out there. But usually it's reaching out to other museums, or there are companies that just build traveling exhibits. That's what they do. So we have to reach out, and usually there's a rental agreement. Usually there's a fee. Sometimes it's higher than other times, but you know, we can do some fundraising to get the really big exhibits in. We're lucky that we've had exhibits from the Smithsonian, the National World War II Museum, and a lot of other museums around the country. So it's kind of, it takes some work to dig them up and to make sure that we can get them in our schedule, because usually they're pretty popular. So being a seasonal museum, our window is limited when we can hold them. So sometimes we have to wait a year or 2 or 3 for that exhibit to finally be open, have an open schedule to come here. But once they're here, I think people like having the chance to see some really world-class quality exhibits right here in Little Wolfeboro. It's a pretty cool experience.
Yeah. Now, we have our own somewhat traveling exhibit, correct?
We do.
I keep saying we.
You're a part of us, absolutely. I always say the volunteers are really critical to what we do because we have a very small staff, and so volunteers like you are really what keep the museum going. So thank you.
I wasn't fishing, but thank you. Thank you.
No,
but
I mean it though. But
I do kind of feel like it's mine.
Exactly, and that's good because our volunteers have pride in the museum, and that I think our visitors really appreciate that. But
so we
do have our own traveling exhibit.
Okay.
So these are the paintings of a man. His name was Charlie Miller. He was a private in the Army during World War II. He had been on, I think, 3 tours in the Army in the 20s and 30s before World War II.
Oh.
So by the time World War II broke out, he was already old by military standards but he got pulled back in to the Army, and he went to the South Pacific. And he was a self-taught artist. He had actually dropped out of school in the 6th grade to help support the family, work in the factories down in Nashua, New Hampshire. But he loved to paint. And he taught himself by basically checking out art books from the library and teaching himself about anatomy and how to draw and all of that. So when he was in the South Pacific, he did hundreds of paintings. He would sketch things out as he saw them and then go back, he had some downtime and paint them. And we're not really sure how he kept them so safe to bring them back, but he brought back, we think, more than 700 paintings.
Wow, and they're a good size.
And some of them are pretty big, some of them are small, some of them are actually like on the back of a cigarette carton, but a lot of them are on big pieces of paper that he had. And he was a very humble man, very quiet. When he came back, he didn't really tell anyone that he had done these. He would occasionally show the family, but for the most part they were stored in paper shopping bags under his bed, which actually are not bad conditions for preserving artwork. They're in a cool, dark place. They're kind of protected being in the bag. So as he was getting older, he was worried what would happen to them. And fortunately, the family, realized what treasures these artworks were. So they originally did an exhibit with the Courier Museum down in Manchester, which is an art museum.
Oh, yeah.
That was the first time they were displayed, and they got a great reception. And then a few years later, they approached our museum when they found out, here's a World War II museum right in New Hampshire, and of course we wanted to display these. So we're really glad that we've been able to work with the family and turn it into a traveling exhibit. It's been to 4 different museums already. So it's been to Texas 2 different times.
Wow.
It's been to New Mexico,
Okay.
and it's been to California. And so we're hoping to, we actually had it here this last summer, because people were asking, when's it going to be on display here again? So we had to give the people what they want and bring it back. And so we're hoping now we can send it out on the road again. And the artwork is, it's amazing. For being self-taught, the quality of the artwork is it's incredible.
I agree with that.
So we really want to get that out to a wider audience.
Nice. Do you have a favorite artifact here?
Ooh. It's tough because there's a lot of cool stuff in the museum.
Yeah.
It's all amazing stuff, and like I said, just holding that history in your hand, it's nothing like it.
Very
But I think probably on the military side, it's probably this tank that's right over here behind me. It's a Pershing tank. It's 92,000 pounds, big boy tank. And it was at the Battle of Remagen, so it's kind of one of our vehicles that really has a kind of big history to it, something that we're really proud to have here. And our founder, David Wright, restored it, basically saved it from being blown up in target practice.
Yeah, literally.
Literally,
Yes,
and restored it to what it is today. So I think that's really cool. But we have a lot of interesting stuff on the home front too. There's not one particular item, but I think it's kind of unique. A lot of World War II museums don't talk as much about the home front. It's more just about military and battles and things like that. So having the home front gallery, which again was our founder David Wright's idea, is really kind of unique. And I think the items in there kind of paint a bigger story of what Americans experienced during that era. So I think just having that gallery in general, I probably can't pick one artifact in there, but the whole thing I think works together.
It's like picking your favorite child.
Exactly. It's too hard to do.
Exactly. Do you have a favorite artifact ever since you've been looking at history, whether you were 12 years old or when you were doing your European stuff?
Oh, geez.
Is there something that you think that was just such an incredible something?
I don't think I can pick just one. I think there's so many things. Like I said, every time I go somewhere, you have to check out the local museum.
Yes.
So, there's a lot of interesting places I've been, things I've seen, but it's really hard to pick just one. There's so many cool things out there.
That's fair. What would you say is the weirdest object that we have in our collection?
There's a couple of coconuts in the collection that were actually sent through the mail. This was something I've heard, I don't know if it's true, that you can still do it today. You can just basically carve an address in a coconut and send it through the United States Postal Service. I don't know if that's true, so don't quote me on that. But I've heard that. And so we have a couple of coconuts in the collection.
They weren't put in boxes. They
were
were
just
shipped
sent,
as coconuts.
They're their own shell. They are protected by... So we have a couple of coconuts that people brought back from the war as a souvenir. And they have some carvings in them. I think that's pretty cool. Those are probably a couple of the weird things that we have, but they're kind of fun too, I think.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. Okay. Didn't see that one coming. Talk to me about how technology has changed museums in general and here at the Wright Museum.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think a lot of museums now are, you go to a museum conference and you see technology is a big push right now. Especially after the pandemic, when a lot of museums had to close, at least temporarily. A lot of museums now have started to work to get their collections online, which I think is great because you can, if you're doing research or even if you're just interested in a certain aspect of history or art or whatever it is, you can go online and see these things. Now, there's no real substitution for seeing it, in person, but I think having an ability to know what's out there is really cool. And that's one thing that we're working on now is digitizing our collection. So going through scanning documents, scanning photographs, taking pictures of everything that we have, so that eventually we can have it on our website. So even things that are not on display, you'll have a chance to see, and researchers will know what we have, so if they want to come and do research, they can kind of plan things that they'd like to see. We can pull stuff out of the collection and give them a chance to look at it. So I think that's one thing that's really kind of a growing aspect.
Okay.
And another is technology in the museum itself. We're in an era now where kids are growing up on computers and phones and everything. So how do we engage their attention? It can be kind of tough. So one thing that we've done is we've invested in some touchscreens to have in the museum. So we basically have virtual exhibits on these touchscreens, and kids naturally they're drawn to them because they know what it is, they know how to use it. It's a giant screen. It looks fun. But then we can use that to teach them, about a certain aspect of the history. So one that we have is we digitized a POW journal from World War II. And you can actually flip through the pages like you're looking at a book, and there's a little animation that goes with it. And you can read the entire journal. And I think, kids, they go to it because it's a big screen and it's fun, and then they're standing there and they're looking and they're actually engaging with what's on that. And then, they get ideas about, oh, well, there's a journal over there in the display case, let's go look at that. And it kind of leads them into engaging, I think, a little more than they might if they were just walking through the museum.
Well, and it allows them to look at every page of that document that they would not be able to flip through.
Exactly.
Because it's under glass.
Yep.
So, that's great.
And I think, having that kind of interactivity, and not just for kids too. I mean, I love when I go to a museum and there's things to touch and play with and everything. So we have, sound sticks. You can pick them up and listen to audio clips from that era. And we have, in the time tunnel, we have videos where you can press a button and watch, clips of all the movies that came out in that year, the hit movies and everything. So having that interactivity, it just makes it a more fun experience, and I think leads people to thinking more about what they're seeing, not just looking through glass at something that's on the wall.
Right.
So I think that's a big thing that museums are going for now too.
Do you have a wish list of, is there some technology we don't have here yet that you're like, ooh, I would love one of those?
I think more touchscreens, obviously, would be kind of fun, but there's some things, I forget what they're called, but they're basically like a dome that is on the roof, and they basically create a cone of sound. So it's a way that you can play audio clips without, adding to the general noise in the room.
That everyone hears whether they want to or not.
And so basically you stand under it and it turns on. It's like a motion sensor, and you can hear whatever it is, if it's related to a video that's playing next door, or it's just, kind of audio to put you in into the experience. But then when you step out of it, it turns off. But even when you're in it, someone could be like 5 feet away from you and they're not really hearing it, or they're hearing it just very faintly because the sound is directed right to where you are. So I think that would be a kind of cool thing to have.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. Okay. What museum or museums are on your bucket list? You've got to have a bucket list.
There's too many. There's too many to tell. Yeah. There's so many out there. Exactly. That's the problem. How can I get to all of these? I think obviously, the big one I haven't been yet is the National World War II Museum.
I know. I so want to go.
Kind of like a mecca, I think, for anyone who's a World War II buff. So you have to go there. So that's definitely high on my list. I'm fortunate to have been to a lot of the Smithsonian's. So. But there's a few that I haven't gone to yet, so a few of those.
Yeah, those are
amazing.
This
one comes out of left field, but probably the Art Institute of Chicago. Now, I'm not a huge art connoisseur or anything like that, but I love the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And if you're familiar with the movie, you know the scene where Cameron is standing in front of the painting. I've always wanted to recreate that. I think that'd be so funny. So that's definitely on my list too.
I hope you've enjoyed today's episode of Moments in History. If you'd like to learn even more history, please stop by my blog that's located at www.lindashentonmatchett.com. And if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to click the like button and subscribe so that you can be sure to receive the episodes that are uploaded the second and fourth Friday of every month. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.